You don't just win championships at the trade deadline and through free agency. We all love to talk about the best players that are out there. Did these teams that we're about to talk about make a big enough splash to flip the script on who we think is going to end up taking home the Stanley Cup? Who are our paper champions here today after the trade deadline? Let's talk about all things trade. Let's put an actual reality on what's going to occur with these trades. Let's temper some expectations. Let's break a little hearts. Let's look through all of the major trades from the NHL trade deadline in 2025. The first big team we have to look at here is obviously the Dallas Stars. If you ask everybody, give them the Stanley Cup now. They are the team to beat. They end up with the best player. Mikko Rantanen gets traded for Logan Stankoven, a conditional first, and 2/3. Now, quickly with Carolina, I think they got an A+ deal on this one right now. I have seen a whole bunch of people ripping them on it. C+, B+. Oh my goodness. I can't believe they couldn't hang on to their best player. You know what? He wasn't going to sign in there. He doesn't fit Rod the Bod system. I'll walk you through that really quickly. Dallas ends up getting the best player in the deal, but straight up, you traded Martin Necas for a boatload of picks and a really, really good player in Logan Stankoven. I think it's completely underrated that he ended up going over there. He's been overlooked completely. He can play third line, second line, and I do think he might even be a future first liner, but he probably hangs around the checking, scoring third line or high-end second line player. Now, one of my partners here on this channel is Hockey Tactics 2025. If you want 300 pages of pure hockey nerd glory here, head down to my link below. Coach Jack Hahn, very high-performance coach in the AHL, other pro leagues, has broken down every single play you might ever need to take a look at if you want to be a little bit of a hockey nerd, including your favorite team down below. And here's the specific reason why Mikko Rantanen was struggling in Carolina. Carolina uses a 3 across the top, a chip and chase system. You may have heard them talking about that. Your defenseman down here ends up regrouping it or passing it right up to your forwards who line all across the blue line in a straight line. Little chip in, heavy pressure when you enter the zone. You have to retrieve pucks, lay body, and it actually does limit their ability to carry the zone with a rush, with speed, and generate exactly what Rantanen likes to do, which is score off the rush, get big plays down low with puck possession. It's a chip and chase system. It works great for Carolina. Sometimes it limits scoring in the playoffs, but it definitely didn't fit number 96. When he moves over to Dallas, though, he's going to be this weak side player here, F3. Dallas does a very standard defensive zone breakout. Your defenseman behind the net breaks it right over to F1 or swings around to the bottom circle here as F3 curls into the middle, slashing, looking to push the defenseman back, creating time and space so they can leave the zone on the rush with speed. 96 is going to fit in this very well for Dallas. And when we take a look where he's projected to fit in the lineup right now, it's with Robertson, Hintz, and Rantanen. We've all heard it said he has to play with a guy like Nathan MacKinnon to be effective. He wasn't super effective in the Four Nations Cup either, but he is playing with two very good players, an absolute monster in Jason Robertson right here. Mikael Granlund is another player they brought in on their trade deadline, slotted to slate into their second line. Wyatt Johnson with his big re-sign. It's a very scary group up front that looks like it has 3 very deep lines. Going back to the back end here, we see Cody Ceci fitting in here back as well. We are still waiting on the return of Miro Heiskanen. Thomas Harley up front, a Four Nations hero there for Team Canada. It is a very scary team indeed. And how are the Dallas Stars doing it? They're doing it down the middle by working the puck into the high slot and the low slot. Most of their shots come from in between the circles, closer to the net here. Not a lot of offense generated from the back end. So a lot is generated off those cycles by those forwards. And we can see they end up finishing in the high slot as well too. So not a ton of rebound chances for them. They end up putting them in clean. The Dallas 5-on-5 defensive and saving pressures, well, defensively, they're very vulnerable on their left side. They give up a lot of chances on that left side. That usually ends up meaning that pucks are coming from the blue line, down low, popping out, second chance and in, or on the rush, they're getting slashed over across that railroad we like to talk about and putting it in on the back door. However, Jake Ottinger, you can see here from a saving percentage, he's actually ice cold from the zone. Most chances are coming in, so he's good at making that push across. Overall, this picture shows Dallas is a very scary team. But does that really make them the favorite in the West? I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it does. And that's because their rivals in the Western Conference here, the Colorado Avalanche and the Winnipeg Jets, have their own story to tell. The Colorado Avalanche are absolutely deadly down the middle right now. A lot of offense driven from Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon, and co. all over the middle of the ice from the blue line all out to the forwards. They end up finishing up high. You can see that Cale Makar is leading the team in goals. Well, he might not be leading the team in goals, but at one point he was ahead of McKinnon. Might still be now. Comment down below. Let me know. Top of my head, didn't check that one. Did I get it right? Lots of offense coming from the top here, and as well defensively, quite a stingy team. However, as I said in my playoff prediction video, a little bit suspect on the goalie, couple ways they can be exploited, but offensively, this team can break down the Dallas Stars if they end up meeting the conference finals. Winnipeg, however, is going to be the biggest challenge, the biggest thorn in the side for the Dallas Stars. They may not have made the biggest splash. They only added Brandon Tanev, Luke Schenn. This is a team that doesn't have the ability to go out there and make big, splashy trades for guys like Mikko Rantanen, but are they a damn good team? Offensively, right now, they generate most of their shots from the outside. They're very particular of when they're going to shoot. They don't shoot a lot, but when they shoot, it counts. Why? Because finishing, red everywhere. These guys bury pucks as a unit. They bury pucks as a team. So they might not have a lot of flashing red on their offense. They're not generating a ton of shots from dangerous areas, but it is going in all over the ice. That is absolutely terrifying for Dallas. Why? Because if we go back to our little book here, the Dallas Stars like to collapse around their net when they're playing in their D zone. That leaves a lot of room up top for defensemen to work. When you go back here, Winnipeg has all the opportunity in the world to cycle it up high, feed Kyle Connor in the high slot, use their defensemen to put pucks on net, and they are absolutely gritty and grindy and will put pucks in. So if you leave a large gap down below, Winnipeg will make you pay, and I don't think two players are going to change that for Dallas. The defensive zone for the Winnipeg Jets is also quite stellar. You can see they are completely stingy at giving up shots, and Connor Hellebuck lets in absolutely nothing. One thing that does stand out for the Jets, their kryptonite might actually end up being a guy like Cale Makar. Lots of opportunities from Colorado up top. Winnipeg tends to be vulnerable from shots that Connor Hellebuck can't see from the point. You have one of the best defensemen in the world putting that in from Colorado. That might be a bit of a scarier matchup than Dallas for Winnipeg. Back to the trades, the Colorado Avalanche bolster their middle. If you can't find a centerman, buy a centerman. They end up going ahead and getting Brock Nelson and Charlie Coyle. Oh, that is a bit of a gut. This may be the team to beat now when you take a look at the roster. Nathan McKinnon, Nelson, Charlie Coyle down the middle with Necas, Letkinen, Nichushkin, and Drouin on the top end. This is a very deep team, but like I have said, everything goes the way number 8 and number 29 goes for the Colorado Avalanche. So although they're much better down the middle of the ice, which is going to help them against teams when those two big players can't be on the ice, their only real objective here is to get rest to their best players, get through the next two lines, not get scored on, and then get number 8 and number 29 back out there to do some damage. This was a great deal by the Colorado Avalanche. They may have picked up a scarier lineup even than the Dallas Stars. Moving over to Edmonton, Jake Walman ends up joining that back end for them. You have Troy Stetcher, Darnell Nurse, Bouchard, Walman. Anytime you have the opportunity to add a top 4 defenseman, you want to do it. There are a lot of holes in Edmonton when it comes to that depth. Now you have two very solid pairings that are going to eat up big minutes. But again, just like Colorado, this team's going to go as McDavid and Draisaitl go. It's going to go as Hyman goes. Those are your 3 big players that are going to end up winning you a championship if you're the Edmonton Oilers. And we can see that here with the Oilers offense. They generate a ton of offense from up top here. This is the Evan Bouchard spot, but it's also the Connor McDavid spot. He likes to cycle in, cycle around, and take a lot of shots from up high here. And down low, you can see where this is where Zach tip in Hyman is going to end up putting in goals, as well as Leon Draisaitl, both big bodies that like to get to the net and bury it down low. They're finishing, though, a little bit cold for all the opportunities they're getting. That's a little bit scary if you're a team playing against the Oilers, because when that dam breaks, it's going to break quick. And defensively, it's been one of their best years ever. This may be the best Edmonton Oilers team defensively right now. But once again, goaltending like Swiss cheese. Pucks are going in regardless of how good you are at limiting shots here on the left side. You got a little bit of Swiss cheese here in the middle. Way too many goals going in on your goaltender, considering the low amount of chances the Oilers are giving up. And that's why bringing in a guy like Jake Walman is such a big deal for the Edmonton Oilers. Anything you can do to continue to block more shots and keep shots away from your goaltender is going to give you a better chance in the playoffs. Let's move back over to the East with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They made as many big splashes as they could. They ended up over the trade deadline picking up Scott Laughton. So they bolstered the middle of their ice as well. And Brandon Carlo ends up coming in. Is that enough to help a Leafs team that's going to be playing in a very, very tough division? No. No, it isn't. But let's look at their roster anyway. Scott Laughton is penciled to slot in as your third line center. We all know this lineup very well. It's a very good lineup. They have a lot of talent down there. When you take a look at the back end, Brandon Carlo automatically pairs with Morgan Riley. When you get a top two player in there, that is an absolutely big deal. And Toronto can use the defensive help. They are not bad in their defensive zone. They can always be a little bit better. Their goaltender is actually performing a little bit above expectations, but that can fall apart at any point in time when you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Toronto offense has been a little bit cold. Their finishing's been a little bit cold. Really what they're looking for is getting their big studs going, getting more pucks in the net, scoring more on the rush, and getting guys like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and Willie Nylander to start finishing what they need to finish. The big challenge I have with the Leafs isn't actually the Leafs, though. It's the big cats. Meow. It's the Florida Panthers. They ended up making a huge splash picking up Brad Marchand. It is very ironic that the Boston Bruins are not in the playoffs this year to pick on the Toronto Maple Leafs, yet the Boston Bruins captain is going to the champions to pair up with Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett to beat the living crap out of everybody they're going to play against. Yikes. Imagine sitting in a locker room and hearing this. I am matching you up against the Bennett Marchand Tkachuk line. Good luck anybody playing against that team. And for really not too much, a conditional, a second round pick, maybe it can turn into a first round pick depending how Florida ends up doing, but a really, really nice pickup here for Florida, as well as they added Seth Jones a little bit before the deadline. This is an absolutely stellar lineup. Bennett, Rodriguez. Well, we all know that Marchand is going to snipe in there, and we all know Tkachuk is going to snipe in. I think they're going to keep Barkov, Reinhart, and Verhaeghe together. You're going to have two very, very deep lines. Their third line, led by Anton Lundell, is fantastic, and you have one of the best defensive cores in the NHL, led by Ekblad and Forsling. Seth Jones slots in on the back end. This is going to be a scary, scary team. And you can see why here. Even before Marchand and Tkachuk end up getting in, a lot of their offense is driven from the left side, that left side point. A lot of their finishing actually ends up being driven from the right side. A lot of cross-ice passes that end up going in, so may not be a lot of shots coming from the right side, but there is a lot of finishing coming from there. Defensively, like I said, it's a team of studs. You add Jones into that, it just makes it worse. It's very hard to get to the net when you're playing against a team like this, and Bobrovsky can get it done between the pipes. So long story short, those are the big headlines from the trade deadline. If you go back and check out my other video, which I'll link at the end of this one, my Stanley Cup playoff predictions have the Winnipeg Jets facing off against the Florida Panthers. I said if I wasn't using my heart, I'm picking the Panthers. If I'm using my heart, I'm taking the Jets. I'm not changing anything. Just because you make a deal before the deadline and you get a couple guys in on paper that look good, doesn't mean it's going to match up and completely change your fortunes. It might. I respect the teams that push all in and give it a shot. The West, once again, looks like an absolute mud and slog fest. But when I look on the East, I don't know who's going to handle Florida right now. Before Marchand even came in, and I just said one player doesn't make a difference, this guy's different. He can fit in anywhere. He's a gritty player. He's just an absolute locker room beauty. If you don't like Brad Marchand, it's because you're not watching, listening, or he's not on your team. He is an incredible player. He's an incredible leader. And when you add him with a guy like Matthew Tkachuk, if he does get back for the playoffs, that is really hard to play against. When you have to play against guys like Forsling, Ekblad, and Seth Jones, that is really hard to play against. Florida looks very good in the East. But in the West, as good as Dallas looks, as good as Colorado looks, you cannot go ahead and close your eyes on the season the Winnipeg Jets are having. They may not have made a huge splash, but this team is getting it done. They just went over to New Jersey and absolutely dismantled the playoff team on a back-to-back night when they were exhausted, far away from home. They made it look like child's play. They are playing as a unit. Hockey has a lot of luck aspects to it as well, too. You let me know if you think this changed a lot. I think I know your answers down below in the comments. You probably disagree and think it did. But for me, it was a really fun day. It was really cool to see some stuff. But lo and behold, I think we're overblowing it. 62 games into the season right now. 82 games is what matters. We'll end up seeing what happens in the playoffs when those matchups hit. Thanks for watching.